Welcome back to Maintenance Minute, everybody. I'm Jim Viebrock. In today's episode, we're going to find out why this electric hot water heater has quit working. Stay tuned. Okay, hot water heaters are expensive, so I don't want to just replace this if I don't have to. A new hot water can be $500 to $700 or more, and that doesn't even include the installation cost. So I want to troubleshoot this one to see what might be wrong with it and see if I can repair it first. So the first thing I want to do is go shut off my breaker box so that there's no power going to the unit at this time. After I've done that, I'm going to open this upper access panel, and it just unscrews. I'm going to set that out of the way. And then there's some insulation here. You're going to lift this insulation. There'll be a safety tab here, and you're going to remove it and get it out of the way as well. Now, what you can see is this is your thermostat, and this is your actual element. So I'm going to open both access panels and expose them to this point, and then I'm going to get my ohms meter out and check and make sure that the thermostat is actually calling for heat. To make sure that my hot water heater is calling for heat, I'm going to open the hot water valve on my faucet and let it run for a few moments. Okay, now that I've let my hot water run for a little bit to make sure that my tank is going to be calling for heat, it's time to check my thermostats to make sure they're working. So if they're working properly and it's calling for heat, I should have electricity down here at my element. So I'm going to ground one electrode, and then I'm going to test it. And you can see on my ohms meter that I have 122 there and 122 there. So that's my 220 that is showing up there ready to go. So I got ample power. The thermostat is calling for power. So that tells me that my elements, one or both of them, are not functioning properly or bad. So the next thing I'm going to do is go turn my breaker back off, and then we'll start to drain this tank. Before I drain the tank, I want to show you something. When I first got here, I noticed this lime scale. This pipe has apparently been dripping very slowly over the years, and there's lime scale built up all over this pipe. We're going to find this on the inside of the tank. It's probably crusted all over the elements, and that's why that they're not functioning properly. The element may actually be getting hot. The heat just can't get out into the water because of the crustation that's over there. We're going to check that out when we get inside. But the next thing we need to do is shut the water off to the tank. Okay, the next thing we want to do is shut our water off. There should be valves close to your hot water tank. If we ever replace this tank, we'll put valves really close right here because this one's kind of far away. But what you want to do is just turn them off, make sure that you can tighten them down, and make sure there's no water going in or out of the tank while we're draining it. Okay, you can see I've already got my hose hooked up here. This goes all the way outside. It runs downhill the entire way. If you have an uphill rise in it, then you're only going to drain the tank part of the way. So you want that to be going downhill as much as possible. Then you open your valve. Some of them will have a regular valve that you can open this way. This particular style, you open with a screwdriver, which I already have. It's possible that you have enough lime calcium built up in there that this is actually plugged. If that's the case, you're going to have to run a wire or something up in there, router it out, and get that to where it'll flow out. You want to be sure and open your T&P valve or your pressure relief valve to let air into the tank, otherwise you'll create a vacuum. It's also a good idea to open the hot water side of a faucet somewhere in the house. I'm going to go enjoy a soda while this drains. I'll be back with you in just a minute. And now I'm ready to start changing out my elements. So what I did is I made sure that my breaker is still off, and this is the element right here. So I'm simply going to undo the screws. And this is a yellow wire and a blue wire. Both wires are hot, so you take them out of the way. Now, before I can put a socket on here, these wires are in my way. I want to be careful not to damage these wires, so I'm going to come up here and take them off up here. Now, since there's multiple wires in that, I would suggest you take a picture of this first so you make sure you get these wires back where they belong, okay? So I'm going to take this blue wire off, pull it off to the side. And then I'm going to come up to the top terminal. There's a blue wire there and a black wire. That was a jumper. So I'm going to have them out of the way. Now I can get to the nut that is on this element here. Now they make special tools to take these off. Go buy one if you want to. It happens to be 1.5 inches. So I've taken an 1.5 inch socket that I have, and I'm going to put that on there with a breaker bar, and I'm going to break it loose like that because it was tight. Okay, and it'll take a time or two for me to get that loose there to where I can unscrew it by hand. But again, it's just an 1.5 inch socket, and they can be stubborn. They can be really, really tight. There it comes. Now, here's the moment of truth. I guarantee you, and it is absolutely caked with lime scale. This element was probably working a little bit. When I took the bottom one out, it was completely covered, and it was actually laying down in and covered over by the lime that was at the bottom of the tank. So this is our problem, and ultimately this is the demise of all electric hot water heaters. But the beautiful thing is, these aren't very expensive to replace. The ones that I'm going to get today are actually a little bit different. I'm going to show this to you. See, this one's got a bent over. These are designed specifically for tanks that have high lime content. Now, you need to get the same wattage, of element here. These are 4,500 watts. They make bigger ones. If you put a bigger one in there, you could actually overheat your wiring. You don't want to do that. You don't want to burn your house down. So be sure and get the same wattage elements to replace with. And you can tell that right here on the side of your tank. It'll tell you what those are. Okay, because there was quite a bit of this lime buildup in the bottom, and it's flakes, so it's not too bad. I just took a piece of CPVC pipe and taped it on the end of my shop vac, and I've been reaching in there and just kind of cleaning it out. I want to clean it out the best I can. I'm not going to be able to get all of it, but I want to do the best I can. Now, you may be tempted to put a lime dissolving chemical in there. Don't do that, because this tank is holding your bath water, your shower water, and your clothes washing water, and you don't want to contaminate that. So the best thing to do is just clean it out there the best you can, and then we're going to replace our elements. I'm going to put this back in. Now, I'm going to put some Teflon on here, commonly called this pipe joint compound. Because these are older, I just want to make sure that I can have a good seal on that. Now, it does have a gasket, and you want to make sure that gasket comes off, because you don't want to double gasket it. So I need to look real quick, make sure that gasket came off, and it did not. So there it is right there. See, if you'd have put that back in there, that would have leaked. So you want to put this in here, and then you just simply screw that back in there. And leverage is going to make that kind of hard to get started, but you got to make sure that you don't get any of that insulation caught in there. And then you want to get that started straight. And they can be, there it went. They can be a bit hard to start sometimes. So you can screw that in there. You're going to take your 1.5 inch socket again, and you're going to tighten it up. And you're going to tighten it pretty good because you don't want it to leak. But keep in mind, I got to keep in mind, is I've got a lot of leverage here with this big breakover bar. And I don't want to strip those threads, because if I do, then I buy a $700 hot water heater. So just good and snug there. And then we're going to put our wires back. Okay, I got my wires back in there the way I want them. Now it's time to put your little insulation piece back in, your safety piece. There we go. Let my insulation roll back down. Now you can test that to make sure that your electrical is right before you put this back on if you want to. We're going to put this together. We're going to fill this up before we turn it on, because we want to check for leaks first. And you can do that, of course, before you put these panels back on if you want to. Be sure and close your T and P valve, and then we're going to turn this on. But leave your faucet on upstairs or wherever else, because you want the air to be able to push out of this as it fills up. Okay, I'm ready to start filling the tank, so I'm going to open this valve, my cold water valve, and I'm going to let it start to fill. Now, it'll take it a few minutes to fill. And again, if you didn't close your valves back, not only are you going to have a giant mess, but your tank also won't fill. It'll pressurize and just stop. So we want to fill this all the way up before we turn it on. We'll give it a few minutes and I'll be right back. Okay, you're almost done. I watched for a few minutes to make sure that my elements weren't leaking, and they're not. I turned the power back on, and then I checked them with my ohms meter again to make sure I had power to both elements, and I did. The elements that we used today were a little over $20 each, and so that makes us $45, $50 to repair this hot water heater. The most important thing we did today was the cleaning out of the bottom. If you didn't do that, back up and do it, because otherwise the elements won't last very long at all. Clean that out, get it good and clean. You've got new elements in there. There's the only other things that can go wrong is your T&P valve can go out, or your pressure release valve. I have another video on that on my channel if you want to watch it. And the thermostats that were in there, the thermostats almost never go bad, so you probably don't even have to worry about that. With that said, we've basically rebuilt this hot water heater. The elements are guaranteed for 5 years, so we're going to extend the life of this hot water heater by at least 5 years. And that's a good thing, because like we said earlier, hot water heaters today are $700 or more, and that doesn't even include the installation. If you like these kinds of videos, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe in the place below where you're supposed to. And if you like this type of stuff, go look at my Facebook page. There are 40 years worth of projects on there that I have done, and you can interact with me with comments and photos and different things, and I'd love to hear from you. Check that out. My Facebook page is in the comment section down below, and thanks for watching. I mean, we love doing these videos, and it's all about you. So thanks for watching.